It's Halloween costume time, guys, and you've probably seen by the title, we are making a goofy, spooky tree costume because of the Hurricane Ian. I had to cancel my trip down to Florida where we were going to go to HHN, and we were also going to go to Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween Party. So my friend Lindsay and I made a last minute trip to Disneyland, and because Goofy is in a new Halloween costume this year, actually all of the Sensational Six actually have new costumes this year, and I am a huge Goofy fan, and Goofy is a spooky tree this year. And so we are going to make a spooky tree costume. So there are so many different elements to this costume. First, there is going to be goofy ears that I am going to be making, and I will show you a little bit about that headband. He also is wearing like a bird's nest on his head, which I think is so adorable. So we're going to be recreating that. We're also going to be making some spooky tree branches that are going to go on a second headband that's going to sit behind the bird's nest. And we are going to be decorating the actual outfit. I think I'm going to go with fabric paint for that, but I will definitely bring you along on that process. And all of the supplies that I used are going to be listed in the description box down below for you to find and recreate this outfit if you are interested. So first, we're going to start with the bird's nest. So I have a ton of Easter decorations, luckily, and I found a bird's nest. And this is the 4-inch bird's nest. It's very standard. It's got some moss in it that's kind of like going everywhere. It did have a couple of like robin's eggs, and so I ended up plucking those guys out and throwing them in the trash. They were kind of damaged anyway. And this is going to be perfect for a little headband that is going to hold 2 eggs. Now, the eggs that are on his head, I'll pop up a picture so you can see, but one is purple-y color and one is green color, and they have polka dots. So we are going to be painting polka dots on these today, and I'm just going to be using some basic craft paint to do that. And we are going to then take and open these guys up. They have holes on the bottom, and then I am going to place some wire in there and actually run the wire through the bottom of the bird's nest just to ensure that they are very stuck in there well. And then I will be putting a little bit of glue around so these are completely closed up and they don't pop open while I'm walking around Disneyland. So why don't we go ahead and get started, guys? Let's make the birds. Definitely overfilled, but we've got yellow paint that is going to go on to the purple egg, and pink paint that is going to go on to the green egg. All I'm going to be doing is just making a little circular pattern on the egg itself, and nothing too exciting or special, but I will show you what that looks like now. This is a very simple process. I'm just taking a regular paintbrush and craft paint, making little circles all around the eggs so they look spotted. Now, I will say that Goofy mentioned to us on his green egg, he does have a hidden Mickey on the back of the egg. So whatever you do, be sure to include that hidden Mickey. I didn't know about it, so I'm going to be including it. I'm actually going to be modifying my bird's nest to make sure that it matches his exactly. And for right now, I'm going to let these dry. I am going to do a second coat just because I do think that once it dries, there might be some patches in there, and I want them to be very vibrant colored. And so once this dries, going to do another coat, and then we will be ready to move on to the next step. This next step is completely optional, but it's something that I personally prefer doing, and that is wrapping my headbands so they look uniform. So I've taken 2 plastic standard headbands. The reason why I'm doing 2 is because I want one with the bird's nest and goofy ears, and then one with the spooky tree branches. That way, if I'm going to ride any rides, I can take my spooky tree branches off and they won't get in the way because they're going to be very large. So all I have to do is take and measure the actual headbands, and what I do is I lay the headband down onto the fabric and actually trace a little bit around the entire headband as I'm moving it to make this little template that looks almost like an oblong oval, if that makes sense. So what this piece is going to do is it is going to wrap around the headband. So I'm going to take Super 77, which is my favorite adhesive, spray it all around the headband inside and out. And then as you can see, I'm starting to lay it down on there where I am just kind of moving the headband around and wrapping it. The reason why I love crushed velvet fabric is because it is very flexible and it also stretches, so it allows for a really clean and smooth coverage of your headband itself. I take and pinch in the edges to the center and make sure they stick very nicely so it looks just very professional and very put together. I'm going to repeat this on the second headband, and there's no need to let this particular headband dry because Super 77 actually dries very, very quickly. And there is the finished product. And we're going to move on and do the second one now. On the first headband, I went ahead and placed on the bird's nest. So I hot glued these 2 eggs into the nest. And then I took and ran wire through the bottom of this bird's nest and around. And on the interior of the headband where the wires were going around and connecting to the headband, I went ahead and hot glued a piece of black velvet to just make it look really polished and really nice. I am loving how this is looking. It's exactly what I was hoping for. So the forefront headband is really almost completed. The only thing I have to do is add goofy ears. Now it's time to create our goofy ear pattern. So I had some goofy ears from Tokyo Disney that I made the pattern off of. I just traced a 1/2 inch seam allowance on the outside of the ear, and then the ear insert is actually going to be a piece of stiffened felt that is the exact same as that goofy ear from Tokyo Disney, and I will leave the measurements here for you. And then it is time to go ahead and cut the fabric and get it into the sewing machine and make these ears. On the left, you've got the stiffened felt, and then on the right, you have 4 pieces of crushed black velvet, right sides together, ready to be sewn. Now it's time to sew. Now it's time to place in the stiffened felt. So as you can see, I'm rolling it very carefully and placing it inside the ear after the ear has been turned right side out, by the way. And then what you'll want to do is just kind of maneuver it in. This is a little bit of a tricky process, but be very careful because you don't want to prevent your stiffened felt from being stiffened by like squishing it too much. So you really kind of have to work it into the ear, and then you'll want to push it as far down into the bottom of the ear as you possibly can. As you can see, I had to try again because it just wasn't working. It's quite a little bit of a process, but once they're in there, it's all good. Make sure that your seams line up with the very edge of your stiffened felt as well, which will make your ears lay really flat and really stiff, which will look very, very nice and professional. Now it's time to hot glue the seam in the top. So I went ahead and put a little bit of glue in there just to make sure that it didn't fray because this fabric tends to fray. And then I measured 3.5 inches up from both sides of the ears. And I placed a little bit of glue on there and then glued the ears to the headband. It's very important to ensure that the stiffened portion of the ear is actually like free hanging, if that makes sense. So you don't want to like glue that directly to it. You want that little bit of loose fabric that doesn't have that stiffened felt to be connected to the headband to allow for you to be able to move the ears as you want to, so they're not like completely stiff and poking out from the sides of your head. For me, I always like to finish off my headbands with GIMP braid to make them look really nice and really professional. And that tutorial is going to be a little bit further down in this video, so I'll put the timestamp here if you're interested in seeing that. We are also going to be working on the branches. So here, let's talk about the branches. So my friend Saria from Dream It DIY, she's super duper talented. A few years ago, she made her daughter Maleficent ears, or Maleficent horn headband ears. And I remembered that video and I was like, I think I can use that same technique to keep the weight down of this headband because I was pretty worried about the weight of this headband. And so how she does it, I'm gonna link her tutorial below. If you're looking for an amazing tutorial on how to make lightweight horn headbands, she is your gal. So I'm gonna link it above and also down below for you. But what she does is she takes aluminum foil and she shapes aluminum foil into the shape that she is looking for. So I did that here with aluminum foil for the different branches that are gonna go onto this headband. So we have the the 3 branches ready to go. They're super duper lightweight, so they're not going to be that crazy on the top of my head. Now, what I want to do is I want to pierce through here and place in a piece of wire, and that way I can place these onto the headband. And then, I know this is going to sound really weird, we're going to cover the headband in painter's tape because I want to use a spray adhesive on the branches themselves to adhere the orange felt that we're going to place in. So I'm going to flip the camera and show you how I'm going to do this now, and then we will start working on the spray adhesive and also the painter's tape. So let's get started. Okay, so let's get these branches connected to this headband. So I'm taking about 6 to 7 inches of craft wire and running them through each of the branches, and then I'm taking my finished headband with the nest and kind of placing them around that nest, because you've got to be very careful that your branches and your nest line up in a way that don't make them hard to wear. So you want to compensate for, you know, how far you stretch apart your branches to compensate for that nest to be able to kind of fit inside of there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and actually get these onto the headband themselves now. And I like to take a big dollop of hot glue, place it onto the headband, and then connect that branch to there and wrap the wire underneath and around the headband, and then place the wire back through the branch itself because I want to ensure that it is as secure as possible. Then I'm going to wrap a little bit of electrical tape around the base of the branch and around that headband to just reinforce it slightly. I just don't want these branches to move no matter what. And I also need it to be very ready to go on a plane to have that transport, because you know how hard it is to transport things on planes. Sometimes it can be a challenge. I definitely carried this on, by the way. And here is what it looks like, all finished and ready to be covered in beautiful orange felt. Oh my gosh, it's staying on so well. It's really not that heavy. This is amazing. Definitely cannot wear this on rides. It's very tall. It is like taller than expected, but I think there could be benefit in reinforcing the underneath sides of the headband with a slight bit of Velcro just to make sure, I don't know, it's staying pretty good, but I do have a little pony at the top, but looking great. Also need to finish these guys off because we can't have aluminum foil. I mean, doesn't look like a tree. We can't have an aluminum tree. So I'm taking washi tape because I can't find painter's tape, and it happens to be Mickey's, of course. Carefully wrap the velvet on this, and that way it's completely covered so I can use my spray adhesive with no problem. So I will catch up with you guys when we are ready to do some spraying. Okay, so the headband fully covered. Everything should be good to go as far as adhesive goes. So before I do the adhesive, I'm going to first take and trace about 2 inches around, maybe 1.5 inches around each of these guys. And I'm going to make a piece that's going to go onto the back. And I will kind of show you how that's going to go. We're going to have to make some slices to make sure it like goes with the curves and those sorts of things. And then I'm going to make another one of that same exact shape and cut it to where it folds over the back, because we want the front to look very polished and the back is going to have some of the seams. So let me start cutting out some felt. I have some fabric pencils that I'm going to be using to trace. So let's do that now, get those pieces cut out, and then it's time to use some adhesive. Okay, so I have laid my branches down onto the felt, and this is felt by the yard that you can just get at Joann's or any of your local fabric stores. It's fairly inexpensive. And then I traced about 1 inch on each side because those branches are pretty thick. So I'm going to be cutting 2 of each of the branches, one for the back and one for the front. Once those branches are cut, I'm going to take the back portion and place it on first because I want to make sure that the back looks less finished than the front, if that makes sense. So we're going to start here with this branch. I'm going to start just making little snips all the way around to make sure that I am able to go ahead and form this fabric to the actual curve of the branch. Once these snips are made, I'm going to go ahead and spray this branch with spray adhesive on both sides. And then I'm going to start just pressing these little snips upwards and connecting them to the aluminum foil itself. It should look a little something like this, and then we are going to connect the front piece now. I want to take the front piece and repeat the exact same process, but when you snip, you're going to want to snip your little pieces in between the lines that you had snipped on the back so it looks very seamless, and so there's not aluminum foil showing in between. Now it's going to be time to move to the other branches. I'm going to go ahead and cover the branch that's completed in aluminum foil just to protect it from the spray adhesive. And I'm going to repeat this for the other branches until they are all finished. Once the branches are all completed, I'm going to go ahead and take off my washi tape or painter's tape and go ahead and finish off the interior of the headband like I like to do, where I take the crushed black velvet and place it over the seam that is connecting the branch to the headband itself. So that is what I'm going to do here, and I'm going to repeat it for each of the branches. Okay, so my branches are really, for the most part, dry. I let them dry for a couple of hours. And now I'm just going to go in and do some touch-up paint. There are a few little areas that have some gaps, and I don't really feel like putting more felt on them is really going to make it look very good. So I figured the little splits, there's a couple of splits where you can see right here. So I think by filling them in with just this fabric paint is going to work just fine. And honestly, I'm not trying to make it perfect. I'm just trying to make it as functional and aesthetically pleasing as possible. So I'm going to start by doing this, and then afterwards we're going to go in with the black fabric paint, and we are going to make the little stripes that are in the actual tree itself. So I'm going to go ahead and get started in that. I got to roll up my sleeves, and it's time to get painting. These are just going to be via freehand, so I am just making some of the little stitches and the lines that you find in his costume, and I'm just referencing a photo of the costume to make these lines. I'm going to let this dry and then repeat on the other side. We are painted, which is great on both sides. That's drying. It actually dries fairly quickly because it soaks into the fabric, because I am using specific fabric paint from the brand Tulip. I got it at Walmart. It's really, if you're looking for some good fabric paint, don't sleep on the cheap Tulip brand from Walmart, because it does the trick. Okay, and then I'm going to take my GIMP braid. I do this for every single headband project. It's just really important to me. I like to finish off the inside with GIMP braid. So this is what GIMP braid is. It's so pretty. I think it just makes it look finished, and I'm just super here for that. So what I do is I usually cut about 14 to 15 inches off. Let's do, because we've got some bumps in the road with the little branches. So I'm gonna do 16 inches. I know that's gonna be too much, but that's okay. Tacky glue. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a line of clear tacky glue on the interior of the headband itself, and then I am going to secure it on and hold it overnight with these little clothespins. So as you can see, I'm putting on about 3 inches of glue or 4 inches of glue, and then I'm laying down that GIMP braid and then holding it or vicing it in place with these clothespins, and then we are going to leave it for a good 12 to 24 hours because we want to make sure that it is very secure and very dry before putting it on our heads or in our hair. The next item we're going to be making for the headband is actually going to be his little apples that hang off of his spooky trees. I'm going to make really small apples. I don't want them to be too large, but I do want them to be able to be hanging. And so I have some basic craft foam that I just had in my craft room. I'm going to be using this. And then also I'm going to be using a white paint pen for the accents because it very much looks like a stuffed apple, like an apple that has been created from fabric and stuffing rather than an actual apple. And I will insert a picture so you guys can see, but I'm just going to be cutting out a basic shape and then gluing it on, and that's it. And I am going to make it double-sided. That way, in case the wind picks up the little apples, it can twist in the wind and you will still see the apple shape on both sides. Now, I just took and I free-handed an apple about the size that I wanted it. I didn't want it to be too large. It's about 1.5 inches. And then I just cut out around it by like an extra 1/2 inch. So there the black is kind of showing through. And then I'm going to take and cut out the actual apple size and then cut that out of the pink foam and attach it, and then the stem and also the 2 small leaves. So I'm going to do that now and then assemble them with glue. The apples are completely finished. These turned out so, so cute. I added a little paint pin kind of accents. And there is the back of them. You can see the little hole punch mark. I was a little bit disappointed. I'm hoping eventually it will come out, but these are going to be dangling from the branches themselves. So now it's time to get these apples onto the branches themselves. So I'm doing a cow hitch knot and reinforcing that with a little bit of glue on the apple itself. I'm just using regular like string. It's nothing special. It's just a black embroidery thread. And as you can see, I'm struggling a little bit. It's really hard to get this string through the edge of the branch. I'm using needle nose pliers and a metal darning needle to get it through. Once it goes through, you're golden, but it is a little bit strugglesome. And then I'm going to reinforce that once it gets through by doing a double knot. And then I'm going to cut off the little tails and then glue it in place with hot glue and fold that felt over the top. And I'm going to repeat this on the other side as well. So you've got 2 little dangly apples. We have moved to my dining room table. We're no longer inside of the craft room, and I have my oversized overalls that I got from Amazon. Super cheap, super comfortable. They are like the most comfortable. If you haven't gotten on like the linen oversized overall bandwagon, y'all, get on it. So I'm going to start freehanding. I think that's the best bet because really it's just lines down the legs, a face on the actual bib, and that's it. As you can probably see, I have filled this with cardboard. I just took apart boxes and placed it inside. I don't think I'm going to have any problem with the paint sticking, but honestly, it's a costume, so I'm not too worried about it. If I was worried about it, I would probably like shove some aluminum foil or wrap these guys in like plastic wrap or something along those lines, but I'm feeling pretty confident that we're not going to soak all the way through. So I'm going to go ahead and get started painting, and I will show you what it looks like at the end. I just took craft paper and cut out what I thought was close to what his image was on the front of his outfit, and then I outlined it, and it is now time to paint. I'm using that same tulip fabric paint that I used earlier in the video on these overalls. Once you're done with the front, I would highly suggest a good 12 hours of letting it dry. And then next, I'm just freehanding all these lines on this garment. I just thought it was a little bit more fun, gave me some creativity, allowed me to kind of go with the way the garment was actually going to probably move on my body. And then I let this dry for another 12 hours, and that was it. Here is what the outfit looked like on. I bought these really cute like faux leather gloves from Amazon. I'm wearing a little black t-shirt. I've got my little oversized overalls on, and then I just wore regular tennis shoes. I also have these little pink apple earrings. I will link them down below for you. They are also from Amazon, and I wore my skeleton Goofy backpack, of course. This is what it was all about, my friends. Goofy came right out of the door. I got to escort him down to the train station. It was so special. He was so excited, and so was his character attendant about the outfit. It was such a magical moment. Here we are walking down towards the train station together, and he stopped and got a couple of special photos with me as well, which I will show you here. I would love to see this costume. If you decide to create it, be sure to send me a photo through Instagram. I'll pop it up here on the screen. Thank you so, so much for being here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Be sure to be subscribed down below for lots more Disney magic and DIYs, and I'll see you guys in the next one. TTFN, bye!